Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This is Logan bringing you the intro, and this week we have some $50 New Capenna budget brews. Let's see what we brought to the table. First up is me, Logan, on Lagrella the Magpie. Lagrella works to blink creatures from everyone's boards to generate plenty of ETB value and gain some +1/+1 counters along the way. My starting hand is Island, Corrosion Verge, Soul Herder, Mull Drifter, Teleportation Circle, Ghostly Flicker, and Cleansing Nova. Next is Shelby playing Cormela, Glamour Thief. This glamorous thief generates lots of mana for spells and loops those spells to create incredibly explosive turns. Shelby's opening hand is Swamp, Izzet Boilerworks, Soul Ring, Rakdos Signet, Rakdos Cluestone, Maestro's Charm, and Thermopod. Our third player today is Sam playing Queza, Augur of Agonies. This Cephalid advises you to draw lots of cards with the promise that you will gain plenty of life and bring your opponent's life totals to 0. Sam's starting hand is Ice Tunnel, Snow-Covered Swamp, Obscura Storefront, Sky Diamond, Ornithopter of Paradise, Infernal Grasp, and Cut of the Prophets. Last is Matt on Mr. Orfeo, the Boulder. This Riveteer's Rhino comes to the table packing a Voltron strategy and plenty of tools to buff him. The Boulder also brought some friends along in case he isn't able to get through himself. Matt's opening hand is Kazandu Refuge, Roadside Reliquary, Kazuul's Fury, Cultivate, Relentless Assault, Kosei Penitent Warlord, and Disciple of Bolus. We're about to hop into the game, but before that, go ahead and give us a like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our new content. We post new gameplay videos every week, new episodes of our podcast every other week, and we live stream every weekend, so you won't want to miss it. Links to the deck list, our social media, and our public Discord server are in the description.
Not only does Shelby win the die roll, he also plays Swamp into Soul Ring into Rakdos Signet as his turn 1. He'll then pass to Sam, who plays an Obscura Storefront, and when it enters the battlefield, he has to sacrifice it and search for a basic. He gets a Snow Plains to the battlefield tapped and gains a life, and then passes to Matt. Matt plays his Kazandu Refuge, gains a life, and then passes to Logan. Logan plays Corrosion Verge and passes to Shelby. Shelby will cast Rakdos Cluestone on his turn, then play Izzet Boilerworks, bouncing a Swamp, and then passes the turn. Sam will play a Snow Swamp, then tap for 2 and cast a Sky Diamond, then pass the turn to Matt. Matt plays Roadside Reliquary as land for turn, then taps for 2 to cast Hero's Blade, then passes to Logan. Logan will play an Island, and then pass the turn. Shelby will play a Bojuka Bog, exiling Sam's land, and then he'll cast Cormela, and he'll have 1 colorless floating left over from his Soul Ring. Cormela does have haste, so he'll activate her ability to float Grixis, and then he'll cast a Maestro's Charm. He chooses to look at the top 5 cards of his library, put 1 into his hand, and then he'll dump 3 islands and a Cluestone into his graveyard. Continuing on, Shelby will then cast a Faithless Looting, drawing 2 cards, and then discarding a Stinging Study and a Crowstorm. Now I know what you're thinking, Crowstorm's illegal, isn't it? And you'd be right. We're aware of that, but we've chosen to ignore it. In other words, we had a Rule 0 discussion and said it was okay for Shelby to play this 1 card. Moving on, the turn is passed to Sam. And Sam will play a Snow Island, then tap for 4 and cast Queza. He'll then pass the turn to Matt, who starts off with a Forest. He'll then tap for 3 and cast his Kosei. And when Kosei enters, he'll get equipped with the Hero's Blade. The turn is then passed to Logan, who drops the Soul Ring he just drew for turn. He'll then tap for 3 and cast an Obelisk of Bant, and then unfortunately miss a land drop and pass the turn to Shelby. And Shelby will start off with a Mountain. He'll then cast his Thermopod. He'll then activate Cormela to make Grixis mana, and then use it to flashback Faithless Looting. And the 2 cards he discards are 2 Swamps. The turn is then passed to Sam. And when he draws a card, he'll drain Matt. He'll then play an Ice Tunnel as land for turn, and then drop an Ornithopter of Paradise. He'll then move to combat and swing Queza at Logan, and then pass the turn to Matt. Matt will play a Mosswort Bridge as land for turn, and hide a card underneath it. He'll then move to combat and swing Kosei at Shelby, who takes it, and then post-combat, Matt will cast a Cultivate, buying a Swamp to the battlefield tapped and a Mountain to his hand, and he'll pass while searching. Now in Logan's turn, he'll hard cast a Mull Drifter, trying to find that 3rd land drop. And he does. He'll play a Temple of Mystery and scry 1 to the bottom, then pass the turn to Shelby. And Shelby will start off by dropping one of my personal favorite cards, Mirror March. He'll then move to combat and swing for 4 at Matt, and then pass the turn to Sam. When Sam draws a card, he'll drain Shelby for 1. Sam will then Planescycle a Timeless Dragon, and the planes he finds is a Snowfield Sinkhole, and he'll play it as land for turn. Then he'll pay 4 mana to eternalize the Timeless Dragon. After this, the turn is passed to Matt. And Matt will start off by playing his Mountain as land for turn, then casting his commander, Mr. Orfeo, the Boulder. And when he enters, Hero's Blade will attach itself to him. Matt will then move to combat and swing his 0/5 at Sam. And when he attacks, Mr. Orfeo will trigger and will double his own power from 5 to 10. Sam will declare no blocks and then takes no damage. Post-combat, Matt will cast a Belt of Giant Strength. Orfeo is at 10 power, so Matt gets to free equip it to him. The turn will then be passed to Logan, who starts his turn off with a basic island. He'll then tap for 3 and cast a Worn Power Stone. After this, Logan will activate Crozenverd, sacrificing it to search for a plains and a forest. He gets a Prairie Stream and a Canopy Vista and passes to Shelby while searching. Shelby will stop him on his instep and float 4 mana thanks to Cormela, and then he'll cast a big score, pitching Preordain to draw 2 cards and make 2 treasures. Shelby will then move to his turn and immediately drop a Young Pyromancer, hoping to get lucky off his Mirror March. Shelby doesn't have a coin, but he does have a d6, and he declares evens is a win. He rolls 4, 2, 2, and 5, in that order, so he gets 3 token copies of Young Pyromancer. He'll then drop a Grim Haruspex, and loses his first roll. He'll then cast a Haunting Imitation, and when he does, he'll get 4 Young Pyromancer triggers. He'll represent the elementals with 1/1 elves. And the only creature that's revealed off Haunting Imitation is a Solemn Simulacrum. And so Shelby will get a copy of it, but as a 1/1 spirit, and he'll get to search for a basic land when it enters. Continuing on, Shelby will sacrifice his original Young Pyromancer to Thermopod to get a red mana, and he'll get to draw a card off Grim Haruspex. He'll then play a Command Beak in his land for turn. After this, he'll sacrifice Sad Sam and Cormela to Thermopod to draw 2 cards and get 2 mana. 1 card off Sad Sam dying, and 1 card off Grim Haruspex. And when Cormela dies, he'll return Maestro's Charm back to his hand. He'll then sacrifice his Command Beacon to put Cormela to his hand. And then he'll cast Cormela, and he'll get Mirror March triggers. Unfortunately, he bricks on the first one. He's still got 3 floating red mana, so he'll use one of it to activate Cormela's ability. And then he'll cast a Burnt Offering, sacrificing Cormela. And I'm just gonna let you guys know, Shelby forgets that those Compy tokens are Young Pyromancers, so every time he casts an instant and sorcery for the rest of this turn, he forgets to make the elementals. In his defense though, it doesn't really affect the ending of the game, and this is the first time he's ever played a Spellslinger deck. Regardless, he adds 2 red and 2 black with the Burnt Offering, and then when Cormela dies, he returns and then casts Big Score, pitching a land to draw 2 and make 2 treasures. He'll then recast Cormela, and he'll actually win 2 flips with Mirror March. By the way, he sacrificed 3 of his elementals to help cast her. So they'll enter, die to Legend Rule, and he'll get to return Crowstorm and Burnt Offering back to his hand. He'll then activate Cormela again to add Grixis for instants and sorceries. He then does a lot of calculating to see what he can do with what he's got in hand. Unfortunately, he needs a lot more blue mana, and there's no way he can produce enough. So he decides to drop his Crowstorm, setting up for next turn and ensuring he's got a lot of blockers. Storm count is 7, so he'll make 8 crows. And so now, banking on his next turn, Shelby will pass to Sam. And Shelby is feeling particularly smooth-brained today because he forgets to exile his Mirror March tokens. However, it does get caught later, so don't worry. And Sam will start off with a Command Tower. He also remembers to drain Shelby for 1 because he drew for turn. Matt then makes a deal with Sam. He says, hey, don't do anything this turn, and I'll kill both Shelby and Logan next turn. Sam gladly accepts that, so he'll just pass. Now on Matt's turn, he plays another Mount in his land for turn. He'll then move to combat and swing his commander at Logan, doubling his power and making it 26. Logan, not wanting to die to command damage in 1 turn, blocks with his Muldrifter because Mr. Orfeo does not have trample. Now in Matt's second main, he drops Relentless Assault, getting another combat and main phase. He'll then move to combat again, swing Mr. Orfeo at Logan, doubling his power up to 52. Logan, unfortunately, can't do anything and is dead. Matt will then tap for 3 mana and cast Kazul's Fury, sacrificing Mr. Orfeo and flinging 56 damage at Shelby's face. Shelby responds by sacrificing all of his tokens for mana, and this is where he catches the Mirror March mistake. He'll get a total of 10 red mana, and he'll draw a card off his horse specs. He also returns Big Score back to his hand when Cormela dies. He'll then use 4 of his red mana to recast Big Score, pitching Riveteer's Overlook to make 2 treasures and draw 2 cards. He'll then cast Burnt Offering again, sacrificing his Thermopod, adding 5 more red mana. And he'll draw a card when it dies. And with that, he actually finds a card he can do something. Unfortunately, he still dies, but he wants to go out with a boom. With 13 total mana, he'll cast Comet Storm, X is equal to 10, multi-kicked once. So he'll do 10 damage to each of its remaining opponents, and then unfortunately, Shelby will perish. With Shelby now dead, the turn is now Sam's, and Sam will drain Matt for 1 when he draws. And unfortunately for Matt, Sam just has it. He'll tap for 7 total mana and drop a Peer into the Abyss, targeting himself. He'll draw half of his deck and lose half of his life. For each card drawn, he'll drain Matt for 1. So Sam will actually end up gaining life from this. Not that it matters though, because Matt can't do anything, so this will kill him, making Sam today's winner. Awesome win, Sam. Well guys, there you have it. That's the game. Sam wins with an awesome Peer into the Abyss line. Also, please don't rag on Shelby too much. Missing those triggers did suck and probably would have helped him a lot more during that turn and got him a bigger Comet Storm later on, but he was really out of his norm when playing a Spellslinger deck. It's something he never does and he wanted to try something new. So go easy on him. He had a pretty complex board state. I gotta say though, for being budget, this game was actually surprisingly high octane. That Sol Ring really let Shelby have some explosive early turns, which leads me to this question for you guys. Do you think Sol Ring has a place in budget videos, or should we exclude it because it gives one player too much advantage early in the game? Let us know what you think down in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. Also, don't forget to check out all of our other content that was mentioned earlier in the video,